First round of the playoffs is in the books. One of us is happy. One of us is not happy. One of us is looking, at the offseason while the other one still has another game here on New Year's Day. Got plenty to talk about. Clemson's taking transfers, though. Cam Ward is not playing second half of football games, and the Pop-Tarts Bowl should be the national championship, and I'll fight anybody that disagrees with me. William, how are you?
Welcome to 2024. I think that intro perfectly summarizes this year. I mean, insane football. What is this Cam Newton figurine, Funko Pop, and Clemson have in common?
Both of them are not playing.
Both have, well, yeah, damn it. Both have two transfers. So it's a great day to be a Clemson Tiger, even though we lost. There's a lot of hope. But it's an even better day to be a Buckeye, I guess. A Buckeye.
Well, we'll get into all that. Let's start talking about with a couple things. Cam Ward gets the record for most passing touchdowns in a career of Division I and then sits out the second half. What do you make of this?
So everyone online saying that was the plan, was for him to get the record and then sit out. I call BS because he got the record in the first quarter and he continued playing. I think he made a business decision at halftime, and I think his camp is trying to back him up. If they planned to do that the whole time, he would have been out after the first quarter. I think he would have been out after he broke the record because all the first string snaps probably would have gone to Emory Williams the entire week. But overall, I think it's sorry. I think it's really, really sorry. I mean, yes, it's cool that he got the record. That's awesome. That's phenomenal. Finish the freaking game. I mean, you're not the only one that's trying to go into the draft. You're not the only one who has stuff on the line. I mean, Cam McCormick is playing his 433rd college football game, but it was his last one. And he literally, we make fun of him a lot, but the amount of injuries he's had, he literally left it all on the field. I mean, I don't know if that dude will ever walk. He will not walk normally by the time he's 30. He might already be 30. But
he might be 30.
There's guys on there who will never play another significant snap of football in their entire lives and would like to go out on a win. I mean, whether it be the Pop-Tart Bowl or the Cignetti Schools for Girl Bowl or the freaking national championship, like what people don't understand is football is important to a lot of people, and it might not be as important to these guys that are in the league or that are in college right now. But with NIL, you really don't have an excuse as to why you're sitting out. You're already getting money. You're already getting paid by the fans. So that's my biggest thing. It's like you are putting your product out there for the fans. The fans are paying for your money, for your salary, and then you sit out. I think it's sorry. I think it's selfish. I don't like it. And then, you can go into the betting side too, where I think Vegas is pretty pissed because people are putting all this money in because they expect Cam Ward to play. Now, what's the difference between that and an injury? Not much, but long story short, I don't even care about the betting side. I think it's sorry for his teammates. And I think this is why Miami will never win a significant football game as long as they continue this culture. They're putting the you, as in yourself, over the team. And that's not a recipe for victory. You might have a good year here and there. You might win 10 games, but you're never going to be consistent because you're reliant on one person and everybody. And once everybody realizes that one person is more important than me, they start to tune out a little bit. It's bad. I don't like that part of it.
There's a part of me that understands bowl games should also be about the future. I understand that, okay, you have a graduating senior that, if you want to rotate guys in because you want to start getting them meaningful snaps. I mean, there's plenty of guys that had quote unquote meaningful snaps throughout the year, but it might have been in mop-up duty. I mean, how meaningful are they? Do you want to get these, freshmen and sophomores game time against Iowa State, who is a strong opponent, to see what they've got going into 2025? So there's a part of me that understands that because, I mean, ultimately, like for Mario Cristobal, yes, okay, winning, 10 games or whatnot this year is fine. But if you aren't doing that year after year after year, and if you can give yourself a little bit of a head start on some of these guys to know, but I mean, from everything I read, Emory Williams is not going to be the starting quarterback next year.
He won't be there. They're going to take a transfer. So anyway, sorry, go ahead.
But so you can say that, but unless Emory Williams came out and showed out, even so, Miller Moss came and was a stud last year for USC, and he got benched halfway through the year and is now going to Louisville. So right. Bowl games, bowl performances aren't the end all be all. They aren't everything. You would take them with a grain of salt because by mid-year, he could be benched and putting him for another guy.
Yeah, and I hear that. I mean, like the logical side hears that. The emotional side, like I want to have my cake and eat it too. Damn it! I want the football playoff to be important, and I want the bowl games to still be important. I mean, because like growing up, I was ecstatic when I saw my team made it to the Liberty Bowl. It was a bowl game, and it was postseason football. It was another game of football. But if you're gonna, yeah, like you're saying, if you're gonna embrace playing the younger guys, play the younger guys. But I do kind of see what you're saying with Cam Ward. You understand that Emory Williams is not the guy. Cam Ward has some significant historical things he can do. I do understand that part. I just have a hard.
I also think you just kind of owe it to your fan base a little bit, especially for these kind of games. It's not like you're coming out before Georgia Tech and saying, yeah, so we just want to get ready for next year. This is a bowl game that everybody clearly knows this is the last game of the year. There's nothing else to be played for. And it's okay to say, yeah, we're going to rotate some guys in. We want to see what we got. Obviously, we want to win the game, but we also need to think about next year as well.
But you know what's going to happen, Jake, and I hope the NCAA is prepared for this, or these TV contracts are prepared for this, because fans aren't going to show up at these bowl games anymore. If they become that, they're going to be spring games. They're going to have to significantly reduce the ticket prices, and hope that they make enough money off of TV, because it's not going to, if that's the product that's going to be put out there, if it's going to be a preseason game where you get to see your future, people aren't going to want to go travel to go see it. People aren't going to go from Miami to California to go watch that game. I mean, and you already see that in some bowl games, but like
I was to say, I feel like we're already heading that trend, because now that the playoff has such importance, going to watch your team in a bowl game, especially right around the holidays, has become even harder.
Well, Jake, people were even talking about not going to the Big Ten championship game because they wanted to save their money to go to the college football playoff game. I mean,
I'm from Oregon or Penn State fans. They were talking. Penn State ended up having 105,000, which I think is a hair under a sellout. But for Penn State, they went to the Big Ten championship, which was driving distance from Indy. Then obviously hosted a game, and now they're heading to Tempe or Phoenix, Arizona for the Fiesta Bowl. If they win, they go to, I believe, is it Atlanta? I think it's Atlanta. Penn State, if they win, I believe they play in
go back to Atlanta.
And then I think the national championship's in Dallas, or is it Houston? I forget where the national championship game is this year.
No, the national championship's in Atlanta.
Oh, okay. But wherever the next game is, Penn State fans, then you're talking about going to Indianapolis. You're talking about going, a home game, which is pricey. Then you're going down to Phoenix for New Year's Day, the next one, which I am blanking where the next game is, and then down to Atlanta. These are not easy trips, and it gets pricey for the average fan.
The next game would be in Miami, the Orange Bowl.
Okay.
And the national championship is in
Atlanta.
I think it's in Atlanta, though.
My gut says Atlanta. So, yeah, if you're Penn State or if you're Oregon, Oregon, you have to fly no matter what. Can't drive to any of these. At least Penn State, you could technically drive to Atlanta. You could technically drive to Indianapolis. But, I mean, still, all that adds up, and I understand why, like, the college football playoff, it's going to be harder to get these fans to go, because it's not like the NFL playoffs where most of them are home games.
Right. Which was
don't got to go anywhere.
Phenomenal. I don't want to be a negative podcast. I'm sick and tired of getting on Twitter and getting on podcasts and hearing the doom and gloom. We told you about the playoffs. We told you about this. It was phenomenal. It was football. It was great. I love seeing the home environments. Even though Clemson lost, I had a good time watching that game. I thought it was a great product. So all these people who are getting online and bitching and moaning about college football right now, please shut up and go watch something else. I'm sick and tired of reading your content. It's absolutely like we have this phenomenal thing that's only around for 13 to 14 weeks out of the year, your team. And you're going to spend all year complaining about seeding, complaining about the SEC, complaining about conferences. Shut up. Watch the game. Enjoy it. They're going to fix it. They're going to get it right. You know what? And this is one data point. This is the first year of the 12-team playoff. It's not going to be perfect the first year, guys. And they're already talking about fixing the seeding. What people don't also realize is that they had to get the group of 5 schools to agree to this college football playoff format, because they are also a part of the NCAA, believe it or not. So the NCAA could not put a 12-team playoff in there without their sign-off. How do you get a sign-off? You make 5 auto bids. Because that includes at least one group of 5 team. So it's going to get fixed. The seeding, there was going to be flaws. It's going to be fixed, and it's going to be even better. It's going to continue to get better. This was a great product. I'm tired of hearing the crap, But what I do want to talk about, Jake, is how amazing the Pop-Tart Bowl is. I saw a tweet out there.
They have the best marketing team ever.
That's what I was about to say. So I saw a tweet out there that had the VP of marketing for Pop-Tarts on there and said, I don't know what her salary is, but it's not enough. And that is so true. Like the theatrics that they did, like having the 3 Pop-Tart mascots running around, the sprinkles on the sideline, the toaster, like you picking the flavor you want to eat after the game, and the 2 Pop-Tarts saluting each other. I mean, it perfectly marries the seriousness of college football and the wanting to win with the humor, and you get to actually enjoy it in a little bit. I mean, that is the perfect bowl game. I mean, there's not a bowl game out there that's better than that. You can't convince me. No. You can't convince me. They took the Duke's Mayo Bowl, and they just blew it up and made it significantly better. I mean, Duke's Mayo Bowl, like, oh, wow, they're dumping mayonnaise on people. That's awesome. So Cheez-Its Bowl is like, yeah, we're going to dump Cheez-Its on people. And Pop-Tart said, hold my beer. You're going to eat the mascot.
Some of these bowl games, especially when we get into this part of the holiday, are always a ton of fun because the Snoop Dogg Bowl, they had a feed of Snoop Dogg on there at one point, which I thought was just hilarious as well. But the Pop-Tarts Bowl, there's nothing else you can say about it. They've figured out the genius of the marketing where people reference the Pop-Tart Bowl. If there's a random bowl game, they're referencing the Pop-Tart Bowl.
Yep.
And the thing is, people were like, oh, well, you end up in the Pop-Tart Bowl. Actually, if my team doesn't make the college football playoff, I want to be in the Pop-Tart Bowl because that looks awesome.
They leaned into that. Because a lot of times people will say stuff like that, like random food item plus bowl to make fun of your team. Like, oh, yeah, you're so good. You made it to the Pop-Tart Bowl. And Pop-Tart Bowl is like, you know what? We're going to lean into that. We're going to lean into that and just make it so much fun. And God, it's phenomenal. I would not be mad if Clemson was playing in the Pop-Tart Bowl if they didn't make the college football playoff.
No, it's funny. It's hilarious. It's what the bowl games should be as well. I know we talked about the seriousness of, trying to enjoy it, but also you need to bring a fun element into these games because these bowls should be a celebration of your season.
Right.
So
absolutely.
After you win, you can have this fun ordeal going on, Pop-Tarts and the toaster in the trophy, which is hilarious.
You know who should be in a toaster right now?
Who?
Kurt Cignetti.
Can
someone talk to him and Josh Heupel about bulletin board material? Because all they did was allow just immense amount of bulletin board material to be given to their opponents. I mean, Kurt Cignetti gets up on national television and says, all I do is beat the hell out of the top 25 teams. Really? That's what you do?
Last time he beat a top 25 team was years ago. Right. He has not beat a top 25 team. And they're referencing Nebraska. It's well, Nebraska finished 6-6 or 7-5 or what it was. Just because they were ranked for 1 week does not mean that they are a top.
They won their bowl game. They won the Fenway Bowl.
Shout out Dylan Raiola bringing
Fenway Bowl.
Nebraska back to the glory days of winning the Fenway Wasabi Bowl. But I saw that clip too, and there's a point where Kurt Cignetti needs to let his team do the talking rather than him speaking out. I was huge on Kurt Cignetti earlier this year, and the more he has talked, it's made him less likable. The I just win, Google me. The I beat the hell out of top 25 teams.
Yeah. He's making himself a heel. I'm like, man, that's not what you want to be at Indiana. Be the good guy. Be the sweetheart.
I thought they
paid him, and he has no pressure now. He doesn't have to think. He can just get up there and talk because he's like, well, I've got my contract extension, I've got my job security. What are they going to do?
Indiana right now views him as a savior because he took him to the college football playoff,
which is great. I mean, I don't want to poo-poo. I don't want to poo-poo what they did on this season. People are going back in revisionist history, hindsight's 2020. Well, what they did wasn't that great. Yes, they did, because everyone had them winning 4 games this year. They won 10. I mean, was it 10 or 11? They won 11 games.
They won 11 games this year.
They went 11-1. I don't care who they played. They went 11-1 as the Indiana Hoosiers. The Indiana Hoosiers aren't supposed to go 11-1. So,
no matter what their schedule is, they've
exactly.
had easy schedules in the past. Now, granted, they may not have been this easy in the past, but you're a Big Ten team, and the fact of, well, their schedule. Well, if you had flipped their schedule back 1 year, they would have played Washington, Michigan, and Ohio State all in the same year, 2 college football playoff teams, and a team that was just on the fringe of it. You can't predict that schedule, and I forget who it was, put out a tweet, something along the lines of, well, they need to fix it. How do you fix it? Adjusting the schedule mid-season?
Yeah.
They play 9 conference games. Like,
yeah, what are they
you want to play 10 instead?
So I want to make sure, as we're bashing Kurt Cignetti, that we do understand too that we do respect what they did this year. But Kurt Cignetti, as the guy who has had your back since August, please shut the hell up when they put a camera in your face. You've gone too far. I mean,
a little bit of modesty would go a long way.
We should have known he was going to do this. I mean, when he did his introductory, meeting at the basketball game, he talked about beating the hell out of Ohio State. Like, we should have known he was going to say some dumb stuff getting in front of a camera. Also, did you see Curtis Rourke's thumb?
I think I saw it, but I don't quite remember.
There's a picture, I think ESPN posted, of him throwing the football and bashing him, whatever. But if you zoom in on it, dude has a hammer thumb. That thing is going to require surgery. No, duh, he couldn't throw the football the back half of the year. I mean, the thumb is very important in throwing the football. I mean, that's where all your grip comes from.
You need the thumb to hold the ball, period.
Right. So, I don't know what they put in that man to be able to hold it, but good God, it looked bad. Let me see if I can find a picture for you, Jake. I'll send it to you.
So, but this game, the Indiana-Notre Dame game, I thought this Indiana game and this Tennessee game, actually, I think Indiana, Tennessee, and SMU all followed a similar script. All 3 games, no, I take that back. Tennessee didn't follow that script. SMU and Indiana followed the script. Both of them had a chance early to make a statement and get on the board.
Yep.
Indiana, they go 3 and out, but then they get an interception really early on. They're on the plus side of the field, go down, make a little bit of a risky throw across the middle, and it's intercepted at the 2-yard line. Indiana, if they score a touchdown there, I still think that Notre Dame wins this because Indiana struggled to move the ball. I mean, you allowed Jeremiah Love to go for 98 yards on, an off tackle run. You knew they were going to run the ball and you loaded the box. It seems like a little too much. And Jeremiah Love got outside and they weren't catching him.
No, that 98-yard touchdown run was like the swing of events. I had to send you the thumb picture. The swing of events from getting the turnover, then turning the ball over, then giving up a 98-yard touchdown run. Yeah. Well, make sure you post that on the. I mean, we wonder why he couldn't throw the football when it's 20 degrees. So that's when weather actually makes a difference, when your thumb is that jacked up.
His thumb's bleeding constantly.
Yeah. So talk about some inflammation. There's no way he had thumb strength. Anyway, Indiana had their chance because I don't think. I'm going to sound stupid. I'm about to sound stupid. You okay if I sound stupid real quick, Jake?
Go for it.
I don't think Notre Dame bullied Indiana. I don't think they did. And I think the momentum of the game got away from them. I think the moment was too big for the players. I think Curtis Rourke was injured. I think Notre Dame's been playing pissed off since Northern Illinois, and I have to give them some flowers too. Like, I don't want to sit here and just talk bad about Indiana the entire time and forget to give Notre Dame some love, because what they've done since Northern Illinois, when everyone, including me, very, very much so including me, casted them aside, they've just gone and just beat the hell out of people. The absolute hell out of people. And yes, it looked like a 10-point game, but that wasn't a 10-point game by halftime or after halftime. By the time it got to the third quarter, that game was over. I mean, Notre Dame, Indiana just could not move the ball against Notre Dame. So hats off to that defense.
They couldn't run the ball, and they kept trying to run the ball. And Notre Dame even lost one of their best defensive players, their stud defensive tackle, early in the game. And Indiana kept trying to run the ball. They ran the ball 27 times for 63 yards.
That's awful.
I think there are teams that need to understand at a certain point, if you can't run it, you need to throw to open up the run.
Yeah,
that doesn't mean you need to be chucking it downfield, but there's other ways to get the ball into space to your playmakers. And now Indiana, they don't have superstar wide receivers. Like, they don't have even though there's people on Twitter that think that Indiana has a better receiving core than Penn State, than Ohio State, my bad. And that Indiana has a better receiving core than Ohio State. If you really want to know who it is, DM me, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
But Elijah Stroud, Miles Prince, Keyshawn Williams, they all finished with more than 40 yards receiving. But a lot of these receiving yards came on the final 2 drives when they finally decided to get aggressive and push the ball downfield.
Right. Well, and like, look at Clemson against Texas. I know we're going to talk about that in a minute. But Clemson could not run the football. They could not run the football. So they just put the ball in Cade Klubnik's hands and said, let's go win this game. And to the tune of 336 yards passing. Like, Curtis Rourke is capable of that. Now, a part of me thinks maybe they knew with how bad his thumb was, that ball's not going down the field very often. So if they're going to throw it, it's going to be short, and it's tough to throw the ball short when they can stack the box to stop the run. Well, those guys are if you're throwing it in the box too, like what's the difference? You're going to have to start going outside if they're going to stack the box, and he couldn't throw the ball outside because of his thumb. So it was a crummy situation for Indiana, but hats off to Notre Dame for handling business.
Yeah, Indiana showed that they could move the ball down the field. That last drive of the first half, they were able to move it, and they got stopped at the 16-yard line. And I thought if they scored a touchdown there and made it 14-7 before the half, that this could be a ball game. The fact that they kicked a field goal, to me, signaled that they weren't serious about winning that game. And they can say that they were serious about it, but you're down 14-0. Notre Dame has started to move the ball on you.
Yeah,
you're
you had
a field goal inside the 20-yard line.
Yeah.
That game plan there. I mean, Notre Dame ended up going down and kicking a field goal before half, so it was still 17-3.
Well, you know what, Jake? I would have been okay with it had he not gotten in front of national television and said, "We beat top 25 teams." Like, if you're going to talk that talk, bring that to the football field. When it's 4th and 7, you're inside.
Have
the
that
20.
Aggressiveness. Right. It was 4th and 4 inside the 20-yard line.
Yeah, that's a bulldog barking a chihuahua ass. Like, you're not doing anything, dude. That's soft. Like, you're not bringing anything to the table. You can talk it all you want, and then you have the time to go out there and prove it, and you backed off.
And then you get aggressive with less than 5 minutes left in the game. You score 2 touchdowns. Obviously, you get an onside kick. You go for 2 again. You don't get it. If you go for 2, you have an outside shot at throwing a Hail Mary to tie the game. But, like, where was this aggressiveness early in the game?
Right. And then, and talking about games getting away from you, I don't know if you're ready to move on to the next game. But SMU, man.
Yeah, let's talk about that. SMU had a chance to put themselves on the board, and Kevin Jennings is probably still upset about the way he played in that
21 game. Players for SMU played phenomenally. 21. Kevin Jennings being the 22nd. The quarterback position is the most important position on the football field, and he didn't have a good game. He had a terrible game.
The very first drive, Drew Aller looked lost his very first drive because Katron Allen is standing there past the first down sticks and like waving for him, and Drew Aller's like looking at everybody but him, and eventually like skips it to Katron Allen. Kevin Jennings gets the ball. They move the ball down the field. They got 4th and short. They're going for it. I love the play call. They can't run to the middle, so they do a bootleg, and then it's a pass. And Kevin Jennings hits him on the backside rather than leading him to the corner.
Yeah.
Also, if he just runs it, he gets the first down anyways. He's got the space.
Well, I wouldn't have ran it either. He had an easy touchdown pass.
He was so wide open. But you have to hit him moving forward rather than going back. Yeah, there was one safety back there, and he made the play to help break it up. But if you throw that ball more towards the corner of the end zone, I mean, nobody's even close to him, and he scores, and they put a touchdown on the board early. You throw 2 pick sixes, which gave Penn State a 14-0 lead. You're stopping Penn State early. That's the thing.
Right.
You were stopping Penn State early. And really, your defense played strong all day. Eventually, they just get so worn down that they have got nothing else that they can do.
So to go back to all these people complaining about the first round of the playoffs, SMU belonged. And SMU
did belong.
I don't think you could watch. If you watched that game and you didn't just watch the box score, you would understand that SMU belonged. They should have been out there. If Kevin Jennings has a pulse, it's a close game. I mean, that probably would have been the best game of the entire weekend. But
that game had a chance early on if Kevin Jennings doesn't throw multiple interceptions, including 2 pick sixes in the first half. I mean, he gave Penn State a 14-0 lead, and both of them were pretty ugly. Now, Penn State played well; they were in the right position, they had good coverage, but both of them were bad passes. They were not near an SMU receiver. They were floated, and they both went to Penn State, linebackers that they returned.
So it's such an ignorant thing to say when people are like, well, when SMU played top 25 teams, what happened? They lost to BYU, they lost to Clemson, they lost to Penn State. All three of those games were should have been one possession games. Penn State was not. Clemson was a one possession game. BYU was a one possession game. Penn State got away from them because their quarterback thought he was playing for Penn State. So, I mean, I get so aggravated that with people who think they have a voice and an opinion who didn't watch the freaking football game. I mean, it's annoying, Jake. It's annoying. I get very, very annoyed.
I have a problem with SMU attempted a field goal in the second half when they were down 31-3. I have a problem with that. Why? I don't really care where you are on the field, but they were on the Penn State 25 or Penn State 7-yard line.
Like, what kind of pride do you have? You're going to lose. Go for a touchdown.
Oh, my bad. There was an 18-yard sack that it was 3rd and goal, and then they got an 18-yard sack. So never mind. It's 4th and goal from the 25. But still, if you're going to try to win the game, it ain't going to be a field goals as you're down 31-3.
You don't win by kicking.
So I thought SMU, I agree. I think SMU played well. I think Penn State's defense is legit. They showed that they're legit.
Yep.
Abdul Carter is an absolute freaking monster.
Yep.
And there's a reason that they couldn't block him.
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, Kurt Cignetti and Josh Heupel, please take notes from how to handle the media when you're playing a team. James Franklin does nothing but sing praises to the opposing team in the incoming week. They were talking about Ashton GT being one of the best running backs in the country this year, and he stopped him. He said, no, one of the best college football running backs in history. So that's how you talk about your opponent. You don't want to give them any bulletin board material. You don't want them you don't want any extra motivation. There's already a lot of motivation out there. Why would you feed them extra motivation? You don't need to. It's stupid.
One thing for Penn State, and they didn't need it this past weekend, they probably won't need it this week. Eventually in the playoffs, there's going to be a game where the receivers have to step up.
Yes, and it's going to be – it won't be in this game because –
it'll probably be the next one.
Yeah.
Because Harrison Wallace finishes the game with 4 catches for 48 yards. Liam Clifford finishes the game with 1 catch for 7 yards. That's all the wide receivers that touch the ball. Other than that, it was tight ends and running backs. Eventually, you're going to need your wide receivers to step up. And the fact that you only had 2 receivers even touch the ball, it's not great.
Well, I think part of that, too, is they didn't have to.
No, they didn't. They were able to run the ball because once you're up 14-0, thanks to your defense, you're able to start playing your own game.
Right.
But I do think that
and look what happened when they did have to throw the ball, Jake. Like that's when Penn State was struggling. In the first quarter, they couldn't score.
Once Drew Aller had a lead and it was more comfortable, he felt a lot better.
Yeah, and then it's easier to run the ball and you can do what you want and people start getting deflated and
you can take a little more risk when you're up by that many.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree. Let's talk about your game here. Let's talk about Clemson and Texas. Clemson, Texas was the best game of the weekend. Clemson went toe-to-toe with Texas for the longest time, but eventually just was not able to pull out a victory.
So this game, honestly, I was really mad, and then I saw the team fight and not give up. And they had a chance to tie it up and didn't get it. They had a chance to make it a one-score game again, didn't get it. But what I saw was Cade Klubnik establish himself into the top quarterback conversation for next year. And there's no doubt after how he played against that Texas team. No one has thrown for that many yards against Texas since Michael Penix last year. And Texas had the number 1 pass defense in the freaking country. I think it was number 4, actually. Texas had given up 4 touchdowns all year long. And Cade threw for 3 of them. Cade threw for 3. He almost matched the amount of touchdowns they had given up all year long. So yes, I was angry that we lost. Yes, it sucked. Honestly, with the guys coming back, we've only lost 4 guys in the transfer portal so far. That's the most out of any Clemson team since the transfer portal era has started. And I think that's the least since the transfer portal started for anybody. And Clemson's always been on the lower side of losing players during the transfer portal. And then I think it might be one of the lower in the country behind like the service academies. So Dabo does an amazing job of roster retention. So what I got out of this game is there's hope. I really honestly think that Clemson's going to be a national championship contending team after watching how they played against Texas and then what's coming back next year. Now, let's go to the game. Phil Maffa has been hurt since the Virginia week. You could definitely tell. He played one drive, I think, against Texas.
And he finished with 2 carries.
He couldn't get back on the field. I mean, it sucked to see because what a phenomenal person, what a phenomenal football player, and you didn't have you didn't have him. But Bryant Wesco, TJ Moore, and Antonio Williams, good God, are they amazing. They're so much fun to watch. But the problem was, and it's been this all year long, stopping outside runs defensively. Clemson cannot do it. They couldn't do it. They couldn't do it against Georgia. If you go back into the Georgia game, when Georgia started to establish their dominance in the second half, they stopped trying to run the ball up the middle and they started running the ball outside. You go to Pitt, you go to Virginia Tech, you go to Louisville. The biggest runs they had were running the ball outside. They can't stop the ball. They could not contain the outside. They just allowed them to. So Texas ran the same play over and over and over again. They might have run the outside stretch zone freaking 30 times, and they probably scored on 20 of them. I mean, it was so frustrating that it seemed like it was a schematic. We got beat schematically and not out athleted. But hats off to Texas. They did exactly what they needed to do. They only punted the ball one time the entire game. Quinn Ewers only made only threw one interception, almost threw 2, but it wasn't caught. And they're one of the worst teams in terms of penalty yards per game. They only had 2 penalties on them the entire game. You can argue this and that about that, whatever. They handled business. And the biggest stat was they were 6 of 12 on third down. I mean, Jake, there was a third and 10, and they ran the ball and got it easily. So when you can run the ball that way, when you can run the ball for 292 yards in a game, you can do whatever the hell you want on offense. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, if you run for almost 300 yards, you're pretty much going to win most of those games.
Right.
I would say at least 7 out of 10 times you're going to win the game if you're running for 300 yards because you're controlling the clock, you're controlling the pace of play, you're doing what you want, you're tiring out the defense. I mean, the one thing for Texas, they had some long drives in there. They had some long drives. Now, Clemson did too, but I mean, Clemson starts with a 12-play drive. Texas started with a 12-play drive. So your defense gets tired. Like we talked about it. The first drive after the second half, 14 plays. They stayed on the field a long time. And like you said, running the ball, Blue and Wisner were having themselves a day. And when you've got not only one running back that can do that, 2 that can go off tackle and can change the game like that, it's just hard.
And Wisner got hurt. Wisner didn't even play the whole game.
Mm-hmm. So Ewers, I think we know what he is at this point. I think Ewers can win a national championship at Texas. I think they have the playmakers to do it, but I think that defense will have to step up. Like if Texas plays Ohio State or Oregon, I'm not sure if they have the skill players on the outside to match up with both of them.
I don't think they can beat Ohio State. I don't think they can beat Oregon. And obviously they can't beat Georgia. So it's like, you better hope you don't get one of those 3 teams. I think Penn State and Texas match up perfectly. I think that would be a phenomenal game. They are very, very similar. Great defense, game manager at quarterback, run the football.
Let's talk about the last one, Ohio State and Tennessee.
Let's talk about it.
Tennessee, quote unquote, invades the shoe. I will give them props. They probably had about 25,000, 30,000 fans there. There's a lot of images that are, I would say, skewed that look like there's a lot of orange, but the orange really pops out way more than the red does. It's like,
and Jake was there, by the way, just in case y'all wondering. So this is not him being biased. You were at the stadium.
There was a lot, but when I got to my seats, there was only 3 Tennessee fans any bit near me. Most of them were on the north end zone. I'm not near the north end zone. I had 3 near me. Everybody else had crappy seats, I'll be honest. All the Tennessee fans were in like the last row of C deck. I sit in the 4th row of C deck. And so there's not many seats that are for sale near me. So this game, it felt like Ohio State came out on a mission. This game, Ohio State came out on a mission and said, we're going to play our game. We're going to win this game. And we're going to make sure that you feel it. I mean, they cracked Nico's helmet twice.
Yeah, I didn't think about that when it was cold. that the helmets would be cracking like that. Yeah, they were laying the wood. Ohio State came to freaking play. And again, why give them bulletin board material? All Tennessee did was talk trash all week long. I mean, even their players, it ain't that loud up there. It's out at SEC Stadium. Blah 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 blah. That's the stupidest thing you can say.
They're making plans on where they're going to throw the field goal post and where they're going to plant the flag and this and that and the other thing. And I know that some of it's just the fan base and the excitement, but boy, were the Tennessee fans quiet at a certain point. Tennessee didn't have a first down until Ohio State was up 21-0. And Ohio State probably should have made it 28-0 if it wasn't for the interception where there was a clear pass interference on Jeremiah Smith, because that's the only way you can guard him is if you get yourself a pass interference. But I mean, it's 21-0 at the end of the first quarter. Jeremiah Smith scored twice in this game. Will Howard did anything he wanted. The offensive line, the makeshift offensive line, played well. And honestly, the only thing Tennessee did was bring their fans. Other than that, it did not feel like this game was ever close.
No. It kind of looked close
at halftime. When
Tennessee scored, but like if you were watching the game, you knew unless something drastically changed momentum wise, it wasn't close. It wasn't close. So I mean, and like the best thing was Tennessee couldn't run the football. Tennessee could not run the football. Dylan Sampson
got hurt.
He did get hurt
first quarter,
but he wasn't doing anything when he was in the game. So I mean,
the only way they could run the ball was with Nico.
Right.
On the third drive of the game, it looked like he handed the ball off, but he kept it and was able to run for about 15 yards, I believe. And they clogged the whole middle. He had to take it, and for whatever reason, they didn't read the quarterback there. And that's how they got their first down of the game.
Now, this includes sacks, but Nico ran the ball 20 times.
That's a lot of times. Nico, I believe I read a stat where if he runs the ball more than 10 times a game, they lose typically.
Yeah. How many touchdowns did Dylan Sampson have?
Dylan Sampson this year?
No, in that game.
0.
How about Brew McCoy?
I don't know who scored their second touchdown, but I'm guessing none.
Nico rushed for both of them.
Oh. Yeah. If I pull up his game log, he rushed for 20 times against Ohio State, rushed 12 times against Georgia, rushed 11 times against Arkansas.
Yep.
Those are his 3 games. He lost all 3 of those games.
Yep. Now, let's give Ohio State some flowers. You want to talk about having the best game of your life? Will Howard. That's round of applause for Will Howard. You want to talk about bouncing back from an absolute freaking bowling shoe ugly football game? I mean, whatever the heck that was in Columbus, Thanksgiving weekend, did not show up last weekend. I mean, Will Howard looked like a Heisman contender. I mean, Jake, he was putting the ball on the freaking money. And I remember at the game, like watching on TV, like the throws he was making were NFL throws in the cold. So, I mean, I was very, very impressed with him. Obviously, that helps a lot. It helps a lot when TreVeyon Henderson has the game of his life. I mean, I thought he only ran the ball 10 times, which it seemed like a lot more. 10 times for 80 yards and 2 touchdowns. TreVeyon Henderson made everyone's job so easy. And you know what the best thing they did the entire game was, Jake?
What was
they
that?
Targeted Jeremiah Smith, the best wide receiver in the freaking country.
Yeah, and he actually only even had 6 catches, but he was so impactful.
17 yards a catch, though. 103 yards, 2 touchdowns. Give that man the football. Take notes. Guess what? Emeka Ibuka, 5 catches, 81 yards, 16 yards a catch. Look at these big plays. TreVeyon Henderson, 13 yards a catch. Gee Scott. Is it Gee Scott or G Scott?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. He's averaging a first down. He hasn't done anything all year. He is a glorified offensive lineman who is very athletic. You know, I don't want to take away from him. He's very good at what he does. He is not a receiver. He had 10 yards a catch.
That was his second most receiving yards this year. So
right at 39, Tennessee could not do anything to stop the Ohio State offense. They had if they wanted to pass it, they were going to pass it. If they were going to run it, if they wanted to run it, they were going to run it. And you know who finally showed up? JTT. I'm talking. That dude just shows up in the biggest games. When there's a big game and he needs to step up. I mean, you talk about Penn State. Was it 2 years ago? Or was it last year?
2 years ago.
2 years ago, where he literally won the game by himself. This game, he's got 5 tackles and 2 sacks. I mean, he showed up. I was very, very impressed with Ohio State. This is the Ohio State team that I thought we were going to get all year long, and they let me down a couple weeks. And I started back away from them. That's why I picked Tennessee to cover. But Ohio State proved to us that they should be the favorites to win the national championship, right behind Oregon.
Yeah, the defense was huge because Nico couldn't throw the ball. Their wide receivers could not get open. They could not get 31. Open. Their receivers were blanketed all night long. Their longest pass of the day was 21 yards. Second longest was 17, and then 14 yards. I mean, their receivers, Brew McCoy, Squirrel White, and Dante Thornton, which are the 3 stud receivers, or I guess you could say they're 3 starters at least, had to combine 6 catches for 71 yards, I think.
81
yards. Sure, that one. I mean, they total
71. You're right. You're right.
Yeah, 104 yards passing overall. Tennessee wasn't a passing team, but you cannot be under 50% passing the ball against Ohio State and expect to win.
Right. That was what we talked about. When we talked about this game, we said, if you're going to beat Ohio State, it's going to be on the perimeter.
And they could not. I mean, they even tried running the ball and passing the ball at different perimeters. And the safeties and linebackers were up in the box because they weren't afraid. I mean, Caleb Downs just had another Caleb Downs day, which isn't even like a superstar on the stat sheet. Caleb Downs had 7 tackles today on Saturday.
You know what?
Saturday.
Guess how many tackles Igmanosin had?
Probably, hopefully none.
Just 2. They couldn't even throw on Igmanosin.
And he is the pass interference guy right there.
He's the pass interference god. They couldn't pick on him. They couldn't do anything. So hats off to him. He showed up in a big moment too. Big time players make big time plays in big time games. And Ohio State, like we said, has more big time players. They just do. Tennessee is not a bad football team. Let's not get it twisted.
They're not.
They're a really good football team. They have a great defense. Let's not take away from Tennessee. They had a great year. Making it to the playoff is very, very difficult. Losing only 3 games is very, very difficult. Now, Ohio State made it 4. No, Ohio State made it 3. They had only lost 2.
They were 10-2.
Losing 3 games is not easy to do, especially when those 3 losses, one of them was Arkansas, so let's not talk about that one. The other 2 are Georgia and Ohio State.
2 teams that are in the next round of the college football playoffs.
Right. So, if I'm a Tennessee fan, I'm happy I made it. Obviously, you're disappointed because you want to win the national championship, but you have pieces. Now, what I don't understand is the guys transfer in the transfer portal now. Like Squirrel White's in the transfer portal. The five-star wide receiver they got, Mike Matthews, is in the transfer portal. They're losing some pretty studly talent, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, Tennessee, we'll see what they do. Dylan Sampson obviously declares for the NFL draft. I think they were kind of hoping he'd come back, but I think it's hard to bring a running back that went for, 17 touchdowns, 20 touchdowns, whatever he had, 1,500 yards, something like that.
Yeah.
It's hard to bring a running back because of the miles on him. Let's talk about this week's games. We've got the first game on New Year's Eve, then 3 games on New Year's Day. First one being the Fiesta Bowl on New Year's Eve, which will be on Tuesday night. Penn State is an 11.5-point favorite over Boise State. What is the key for either team here?
So the key for Penn State is don't turn the ball over, get the passing game going. I think people might overlook how good Boise State's rush defense is. They held Oregon in check. They did a really good job. Obviously, Oregon helped them out a little bit, turning the ball over, not being able to convert on 3rd down. But Boise State is very, 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 very vulnerable in the passing game. And if Penn State wants to beat them and beat them good and beat them handedly, they need to be able to throw the football. They need Drew Aller to have a good game, not turn the ball over, and then that opens up the run. Obviously, Boise State, the equation is simple. It's just hard to get it done, and that's run the football with Ashton G&T. Don't turn the ball over and run the football with Ashton G&T. Don't make mistakes. Don't give Penn State any freebies, and you have a chance to stay in it because Penn State's a good football team. They're not. I don't think they're world beaters by any means. They're not coming in here and blowing out anybody. They're not. Yes, they blew out SMU, SMU blew out themselves more than Penn State blew out SMU. Does that make sense? And I think Penn State does enough of putting people in bad situations that they're able to win close games. I mean, that's just what they do. They keep it close. They put you in a phone booth. They fist fight you until you quit, until you call uncle. And we're going to find out how tough Boise State is because they play a similar brand of football. So I think the Boise State can't give them any freebies. This is pretty simple. And then run the football. Ashton GT, they've got to be able to run the football. And then when Maddox has the chance to throw the football, he's got to make it count. You've got to make the big plays count. You can't miss on the long throws. There's going to be times where a guy's going to be open down the field. You're going to get your opportunities. You cannot miss your shots. Can't do it. You got to land your haymakers in this game. Penn State, just don't make mistakes. That's simple. They should beat the game. They should beat them. They're better than them. Just don't make mistakes.
I'm right there with you. I think Boise State's key is they need to ugly up this game. They need multiple turnovers. They need this game to get ugly. They need to get sloppy because in the end, they can just go back to Ashton GT and let him run the ball.
Right.
Like, no matter what, they've got their bread and butter in the backfield right there. It doesn't matter what your offensive line does. He finds a hole and he's going to run the ball. But for Penn State, they just need to get the ball to their playmakers. Nick Singleton, Kaytron Allen, Tyler Warren, like those guys, they just need to get the ball. Boise State doesn't have the playmakers on defense to be able to slow these guys down. Tyler Warren is, if not the first best tight end in the country, second best tight end in the country. I anger some people, but
shout out Fannin.
Shout out Harris Fannin. Nick Singleton, Kaytron Allen are a phenomenal running back duo. They complement each other incredibly well. Kaytron Allen is a bruiser. Nick Singleton is the home run hitter. These guys are going to end up getting theirs. If you can get the ball to your playmakers in space, and like I said on the other side, keep it clean. Drew Aller can't make mistakes. He just needs to be the game manager. He just needs to get the ball out there. He doesn't need to go out there and throw 35 times in a game. He needs to go out there and throw 20 times, get the ball, half of them to Singleton, half of them to Singleton, Warren, and Allen, and you'll win the game.
Yep.
The defense just needs to play their defense. The defense, even though Ashton GT is really, really good, if Penn State can hold Ashton GT out of the end zone, then this game's over well before it starts. I think Boise State needs to keep this low scoring. I think Boise State needs to keep it under 21 points because I don't think Boise State can score 30 on Penn State.
No, and the thing I'm afraid of is just like Indiana, it seemed, just like SMU, it seems like the moment might be too big. More so SMU than Indiana. I'm afraid this moment might be too big for Boise State. I'm afraid.
Boise State didn't get I don't want to call it a warm-up game because everybody, these were obviously playoff games. But Penn State has now been in the atmosphere for the playoff, knows the winner go home mentality. Boise State, this is the first one. They're talking about wearing what they wore back in 2006 for the Fiesta Bowl. This is a different kind of magic here. This is a national championship is on the line. And I think James Franklin knows how to get his guys up for this game because he's not playing Ohio State. The only game he tends to lose in these are Ohio State because that's all his big games tend to be. When James Franklin is not playing basically Ohio State or Michigan in a big game, he tends to get his guys to show up and play well.
Right. And that's not because of him. That's because of the talent gap. Mm-hmm. There's not, you don't have a talent gap over Ohio State. You don't. You never will. You're either going to be even or you're going to be significantly lower. So I don't think this game's a blowout simply because I'm not impressed by Drew Aller and his ability to move the football and for that offense to score at will. But I do think Penn State's able to cover that 11.5 point spread.
Yeah, I have Penn State covering the 11.5 point spread as well. I think this game, I forget the number I actually put, but I think we're going to be somewhere right around like a 34-17 game.
Yeah.
I think that Boise will score some points. The main thing is what we've seen with these other games. If you get a chance to score early, you have to score.
Yeah, and if you get a turnover, you cannot give it right back to them.
Yeah, can't give it right back. You have to score if you get the chance early because that is going to shoot yourself in the foot and be a reason why you don't win. Second game here, Texas and Arizona State is the 1:00 game. They are in the
Peach Bowl.
They're in the Peach Bowl. I can't remember where everybody is. Texas and Arizona State are in the Peach Bowl. Texas is 12.5 point favorite in this one. Tell me about your keys to victory for this one.
Again, do not give people bulletin board material. Sam Levitt, you're a freshman. I understand it. I understand people doubt you. Shut up. Why would you say you're going to go out there and prove that you're the better quarterback? Of course you want to think that. Of course you want to think that. You want your guys to think that. Keep it internal. Don't say it in front of a freaking camera. Stop. Stop, guys. Stop. Texas is more talented than you. You don't need to give them anything else. They don't need any more motivation. You don't need to wake them up. You don't want to make them mad. There's no point to do that. Why would you ever do that? Texas is a much better football team than Arizona State. And the key to this is that rush defense. If that rush defense that Texas has, the number one rush defense in the country, shows up and handles Cam Scatterbo, Arizona State is not going to be able to score at all. I mean, and I think this game is going to get ugly. I think this is going to be the blowout of the college football playoff. I think the Cinderella of the Sun Devils, the Cinderella run for the Sun Devils is going to end abruptly in Atlanta. I mean, I love that Arizona State's made it. I love their story. I'm starting to like Kenny Dillingham. But they don't match up with Texas. They don't. Texas is a good football team. Texas is a great football team, and they win by defense and not making mistakes. They don't. And Quinn Ewers' response was perfect. I saw that he said that. They're a great football team. They make great plays. He's a great quarterback. I can't wait to play him. Period. That's what you say. That's what you say. But you know what the difference is between all these teams is all these teams have been in these situations. It happened again, Jake. My emphatic hands when I'm talking just hit the USB cord. So I don't know if my camera will cut back on. I can disconnect if you want. You want me to disconnect and come back?
Yeah, go for it. One thing I really think about Arizona State, though, they have to find a playmaker in the receivers. Yeah. Cam Scatterbo can't do everything. And Jordan Tyson was their clear leading receiver. He had 75 catches this year, over 1,000 yards, and he's out for the playoffs. He's out for the rest of the season.
Yeah,
so
that sucks.
Their next leading wide receiver is Xavier Gilroy, who had 19 catches for 320 yards, and Melquan Stovall, who had 17 catches for 253 yards.
Now, Gilroy had a great game in the Big 12 championship. So, I mean, like, he stepped up with Jordan Tyson being out.
But Jordan Tyson is obviously the more talented wide receiver, and you don't have him now playing in your biggest game of the season.
Yeah.
I think that is going to be incredibly, incredibly hard to overcome because for Texas, they know to key on Cam Scatterbo. Their defense is going to be able to slow him down in the run game. Now, Scatterbo is obviously incredibly talented. It is one of the main reasons why Arizona State is where they are. But also, Sam Levitt is a freshman quarterback. He's a freshman quarterback going up against an experienced Texas defense. You talked about the moment being too big for Boise State. I think the moment's too big for Arizona State here.
Right.
I think the moment is going to be way too big. I think there's a little bit of extra excitement here. And I just don't see Arizona State coming out of here with a victory. If there's a blowout, I think it's going to be this one.
Yeah, I agree. And the point I was trying to finish last before I destroyed my entire setup, the difference in like your Texases, your Georgias, your Arizona States, Arizona State, Indiana, SMU, Boise State, all those teams have not been playing in big games all year round in the past 5-10 years, right? Their coaches haven't been playing in those big games. Now, Boise State and SMU did it, prepared perfectly. They didn't go out there and give bulletin board material. They were ready to play. Indiana and Arizona State have not been in those big games. They were allowed to talk. They weren't prepared to speak a certain way in these press conferences, and now they're just feeding motivation. It's never a good idea. But I think the biggest key to this game, Jake, is the fact that Arizona has a bottom 90 pass defense. I think they're 91st, 96, somewhere around there in pass defense. So Quinn Ewers, this is going to be the perfect opportunity for him to go out there and be the better quarterback, because Sam Levitt hasn't faced a defense like this. BYU is the best defense he's faced all year. And I don't think he had a great game against BYU. So I mean, this is going to be this one's going to be ugly. When the committee gets together to talk about the seeding disparity and what happened and the issues with the college football playoff, this game is going to come up and be the reason why they change the seeding.
Yeah, and on a side note, I do think we can all agree that the seeding needs to be changed. And
yeah,
that
absolutely.
The conference champions, you put 5 of them in, that's fine. I think we all had an idealistic view of what was going to happen where, okay, yeah, the fourth college football, champion might not be the 4 seed, but they might be, number 7. Okay, that's fine. Nobody really pictured 3 college conference champions being below the 8 seed and then automatically getting bumped up to 4 and 5.
Right.
When there was clearly a talent disparity in some of these that, yeah, by all means, get them in there.
Yeah.
I think you could even justify giving them the home playoff game.
Right. Yeah. They played an extra game. Give it to them.
I think you can justify as long as you win your conference, you get a home playoff game. But this getting a bye into the second round, I mean, Texas is the lower seed, and there's Penn State. There's a couple Penn State accounts that are Boise is putting out like don't count us out, and Penn State fans are saying, how are we going to count you out? You're the higher seed. Well, it's a higher seed by technicality. You're actually Penn State's the higher ranked team, and Penn State's favored by 11.5 points.
And I think they'll cover that. Oh, we already talked
Boise
about
State
that.
is every bit of the underdog, even if the seeding doesn't say that.
Yeah.
So I think we're both taking Texas in this game. Do you have a score prediction?
42-13.
Yeah, I think I have 31-13.
I think it's going to be a blowout.
I think it will be too. And I think it could be like 31-6. And Arizona State scores a late touchdown to make it 31-13. I think this game is over well before halftime.
Yeah. Arch Manning, we'll get to see what he does in the second half.
Arch Manning's going to get a ton of run in this game.
Yeah.
Next one, we got the Rose Bowl Classic, the granddaddy of them all. Ohio State and Oregon will match up again in this one. Teams look a little bit different. Ohio State's offensive line's a little bit different, but for the most part, all the same players, different venue, but still on the West Coast. What does Ohio State need to do differently in order to win this one?
Not slide with 3 seconds left. No, I mean, what does Ohio State need to do differently? They need to not turn the ball over. Will Howard needs to play like he did. They need to give their playmakers chances to make plays. Jeremiah Smith needs to touch the ball at least 5 times. Emeka Egbuka needs to touch the ball at least 5 times. Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins have to have a good game. The reason Will Howard was able to do what he was able to do against Tennessee was because they could run the football. Quinshon Judkins didn't have his best game rushing, but he did decent in the passing game, if I remember correctly, in the receiving game. Mm-hmm. But Travion Henderson needs to have a big game. So maybe this is Quinshon Judkins' game where he really makes it worth him coming down there, making all the boosters glad that they gave him that money. Ohio State has a really good chance. I mean, stop the pass rush. They were able to do that against Tennessee, and Tennessee has one of the best pass rushes in the country. James Pierce Jr. is arguably a top 10 player in next year's draft, and I don't think he had a sack. I mean, if he did, he had one.
There was no sacks allowed in that game.
There you go. So did not play. They held one of the best defensive lines in the country in check. So you're going to Oregon, who also has a really good defensive line. If you can keep Will Howard's jersey clean, it's going to be great. Now, a part of that not having sacks was game plan. Chip Kelly had a hell of a game plan. Both these teams played each other already. You're not going to see the same game. You're not going to see the same game plan. It's going to look a lot different from both sides. But the difference in – I thought Ohio State would beat Oregon by 10 when they played in the regular season. And I still think that in this game. I still think they can beat them by 10. I still think that they're a better football team. I still think they're more complete. And I think they're more battle-tested. Oregon hasn't really had to play anybody all year round. And when they went and played Penn State in the Big Ten championship game, yes, they beat them by double digits, but they let Penn State mess around and drop 30 on them. Penn State doesn't drop 30 on anybody. So Oregon has flaws. They are not perfect. Yes, they're undefeated, so they have played perfectly. They are not perfect. Ohio State is going to expose that. I really, really think so. I really, really think so. And I think that's because Chip Kelly's learned from his mistakes. The team in October is not the team in January that's going to be playing. So I think we're going to see that, and I think they've been able to grow more because they've had to play Penn State, because they've had to play, because they lost to Michigan. I think that loss to Michigan is going to make them so hungry and motivated. I mean, I know you don't want to keep hearing me say that y'all lost to Michigan, but you lost to Michigan, so I have to say that you lost to Michigan, and that's what's going to help you win the national championship. But Nick Saban made a great point. Ohio State fans, if I hear one more Ohio State fan say, I would rather beat Michigan than win the national championship, I will slap the hell out of you. That is, if Clemson would have gone and won the national championship, you know how much sweeter that loss to South Carolina would have tasted to me? I would not have cared about that game. That'd have been great. I know I had to hear them all year. Oh, well, we're essentially national champions because we beat y'all. Don't care. Don't care because you know what? It's not going to go up on the banner. Yeah, they can kiss the ring while we're saying thank you for beating us. So I think Ohio State is the better football team overall. I know they have 2 losses, one of them being to Oregon, but that was at Oregon's field. This is at a away site, and yes, it's in California, which is closer to Oregon, obviously. But it's not like Ohio State fans have never gone to Pasadena. The Rose Bowl is a frequent flyer place for Columbus, Ohio. So I'm not worried about travel. It's going to be
it's not like it's going to be 70-30. It's going to be every bit of 50-50 because this is a traditional site for both of these programs that they're going to make the trip. It's not like it's going to be a home playoff game for either team. It's going to be every bit 50-50 split.
Yeah, and I think that makes the difference. I think that's the biggest difference in the game.
I think for this one, for Oregon, establishing the run game is important because Ohio State tends to struggle with running quarterbacks. And Dylan Gabriel, while he only had 4 rushes the last time, it was for 32 yards. And a couple of them, one of them was a 27-yard run that really, really extended the drive. For Ohio State, they need to get the ball to Jeremiah Smith. They need to get the ball to Emeka Egbuka. They need to get the ball to Travion Henderson. They got to get these guys the ball in space and not rely on the middle and not rely on the interior. Oregon has Derek Harmon, who is going to be a strong force in that middle. And like you said, keeping Will Howard off his back, giving him enough time, because some of these routes are long developing. They're not always the quickest. They're not slant routes. They're not, 2-step drop, 3-step drop passes. Some of these take some time to develop because they want these guys in space and they want to build some separation. So the offensive line needs to have enough time to allow Will Howard to get the ball out. The defense, Denzel Burke had arguably his worst game of his career against Oregon last time. Evan Stewart had 149 yards and a touchdown. I'm not sure if Evan Stewart had 140 yards in any other game. He only had 613 yards this year, and 149 of them came against Ohio State.
Yeah.
Evan Stewart is obviously very talented, but he needs to have – Denzel Burke needs to have another good game. And also understand that Oregon has the playmakers to go toe-to-toe with Ohio State. They absolutely have the playmakers. And it wouldn't shock me in the least if Oregon wins this game because they are that talented. They do understand. They have seen Ohio State once, but they do say it's hard to beat the same team twice in one season. It can be done, but it's very difficult.
Yep.
What is your score prediction for this one?
Ohio State. Oh, I sent you my score prediction in the group chat. Oh, what was it? It was essentially the score from the. I didn't mean to do this, but it was the score from the end season, the regular season game, but flipped. I think it was. I said 32-30.
Let me see if I can find yours.
Yeah, I'll make sure.
I'm pretty sure I have 34-31 Ohio State.
Yeah, and I put 34-32.
Yeah, I think everybody can agree that this is probably going to be the best game of the second round. This might be the best game of the college football playoffs.
Yeah. Also, my prediction on air for Texas or Arizona State was 42-13. The prediction that I gave you last week that I did not reference was 42-13.
You really think this is going to be a blowout?
I really think it's going to be 42-13.
Last game. Well, before we get that, let's go into our underdog pick. So underdog, if you've been following along, it's the easiest way to take your college football fandom next level. Make sure to check out Underdog Fantasy. Sign up with promo code WALK-ON to claim your free pick, plus your first time deposit up to $1,000 in bonus cash. Best way to play. We've been playing all season. William hit his season-long picks. Good for him. I did not. You can visit underdogfantasy.com or find them in the App Store. You must be 18 or older to play, and terms will apply. I went 0 for 2 last week. How did you do?
Over 2. Over 2. I had
we're due.
A lot of trust in Kevin Jennings. He had negative 25 yards rushing, so that did not help me to get to 250 yards passing and rushing combined. And I had Riley Leonard running for over 53.5 yards. I thought they would struggle to run the football. They did not. He only had 20 yards rushing or 25. So, yeah, I was off.
I took Dylan Sampson higher than 92.5 rushing yards, and he didn't play.
But you did that to jinx it. I said it last week. You knew what you're doing. You knew what you're doing.
I had Drew Aller. I had Drew Aller going higher than 248.5 passing and rushing yards. He only had 137. Disgustingly low.
Let's watch you pick Dylan Gabriel. What is he going to do, Jinx? You going to throw for 400? You going to try?
I am not doing the self jinx this week. I am not doing the self jinx this week.
Wait. Are we going to talk Georgia?
No, we'll get to them. I want to do this, and then we'll go get.
Okay. I got you. You did say that. I was just testing you. This week, what I'm going to miss on, I got Drew Aller passing for higher than 227.5 passing yards. I think because of how flawed Boise State's back end is, he's going to get this pretty quickly before it gets ugly, if it gets ugly. So I'm not very confident in that one, but I'm going with it because I just don't see Nick Singleton or Katron Allen running for I think one was higher than 50, one was higher than 74. I don't really see that happening. I might see them both getting around the 50 mark. They're going to run for over 100 yards. I just don't know if they'll get their higher marks that the underdog set for them. So Drew Aller at 227.5. If Tyler Warren goes out there and has a big game, and then Julian Fleming decides that he wants to replace his ping pong paddles with football gloves, that's very easy to do. Get a couple big screen plays in there. And then I also have Quinn Ewers going higher for 252.5 passing yards. Like I said, Arizona State has the 96th ranked pass defense. And they gave him bulletin board material so that they were going to show who the better quarterback was. So those are my 2 picks. I'm pretty confident that Quinn Ewers won.
I'm going to so I actually have a different perspective on the Penn State Boise State game. I'm going to take Nick Singleton go higher than 72.5 rushing yards. UNLV went for 218 on them. Penn State is a better team than UNLV. I think Nick Singleton hits 1 or 2 big long runs. I don't necessarily think that he's going to be ground and pound. I think he's going to hit a 50, 60-yard run at some point and give him this 72.5 pretty easy. And then I have Gunnar Stockton going higher than half an interception because I like to be a sicko. Notre Dame has 18. What did you say?
Go ahead. Notre Dame should be a lock.
Yeah, Notre Dame has 18 interceptions this year. They've only had 3 games without one. Backup quarterback, big game. Notre Dame's secondary is pretty strong. I feel pretty good about Gunnar Stockton throwing an interception this game. Speaking of the Georgia Notre Dame game, this is the Sugar Bowl on New Year's Eve night. I think 8:45 kick. Georgia is a 1.5 favorite. Notre Dame opened as a favorite. Now this has flipped to Georgia. What is the key here?
I don't know, man. This is similar to the Ohio State Tennessee game. Which I thought were 2 very even teams. Gunnar Stockton, first start. What a game to be your first start, right? Riley Leonard, he showed that he could play and produce in a big time game, but now he's not facing Indiana. He's facing the best defense he's faced his entire career. And I think I have Georgia winning. I'm not confident in that. I would not be shocked to see Notre Dame come out and win this game, but the reason I have Georgia winning is because of their defense, because of how good their defense is. I don't think they're going to be able to run the football, and I think that's the key to the game. I think Georgia's hog mollies in the trenches are going to be able to keep Notre Dame from running the football consistently, and they're going to have to put the ball in Riley Leonard's hands. And I don't even trust their I don't trust their receivers to beat anybody on the outside. I don't think. I mean, I don't know, man. Jaden Greathouse is a good receiver. Bo Collins is a good receiver. But that's it. You're not beating Malachi Starks. You're not beating that defense.
I don't trust the receivers on either of these teams. I'll be honest.
That's true. That's true.
Because Georgia, their receivers have a case of the dropsies, and I don't think Notre Dame has the receivers to create separation.
Right.
Dominic Lovett has dropped enough balls for his whole team, and he's not even the only one that drops passes.
Yeah,
now
Arian Smith
quarterback.
Yeah.
Backup quarterback. I mean, sometimes these guys step up in big moments and understanding that, there's more on the line here. Gunnar Stockton, I mean, there's no other option. You have to play, you have to show up, and you're facing a really good defense. You don't get the tune-up of Indiana. You don't get the tune-up of SMU. Notre Dame has a top 10 defense in the country, and this is going to be a very tough battle. I think both sides, it's about establishing the run and playing the old school Big Ten field possession game. Understanding that a win on that drive might not be scoring points. A win on that drive might be pinning the other team inside the 10-yard line, forcing them to go 90 yards.
Right.
Understanding that points might be at a premium in this game, and if you can get in the end zone, you have to do it. But also, you can't be soft and settle for a field goal when it doesn't make sense.
Right. Well, and I think both these teams, speaking of field goals, have phenomenal field goal kickers. Woodring for Georgia is great. He had a 55-yarder against Clemson. He's just been phenomenal year round. And then Mitch Jeter was great at South Carolina, and he's been decent at Notre Dame. He's had some troubles, but you're playing in the Sugar Bowl, you're playing in the Dome, so it's a perfect environment for these kickers. So I think this might be one of those games like the LSU Alabama National Championship a few years ago where you win like 9-3, 21-9, whatever it was in that national championship game. So this is going to be an ugly brand of football, but it's going to be phenomenal for all you like true college football fans who love to see defenses go out there and just smack people around. This is going to be the game to watch. This is going to be a violent game.
Yeah, this is going to be a very physical football game. Very physical.
And the difference in this game, Jake, I truly just think it's because Georgia's been in bigger games. They've played on the road. They played Clemson, handled them. They played Alabama, beat them. They beat Texas twice. I mean, yes, they had Carson Beck, but Carson Beck didn't play great in any of those games. I mean, he had a decent game against Clemson and then had a great second half against Alabama. But Gunnar Stockton was the one who won the game for him against Texas in the SEC championship. So, and then Carson Beck was, I don't know where he was in the regular season matchup against Texas. He sure as hell wasn't on the football field. So I have Georgia winning this game. God, this might be a 1-point game. This might be a 2-point game. Like I don't even know if Georgia covers, and it's a 1.5-point spread. Like that's what's crazy. Like this is going to be a really good football game. But I'm going to go with Georgia because they're more battle tested.
I'm taking Notre Dame 24-20 in this game. I think you're on the right page with all of this. I think I actually might be surprised there's 44 points in this game. I think this should be closer to a 17-13 game.
Yeah.
I think the difference here is Gunnar Stockton. He played decent against Texas when he came in for relief. Obviously, he helps win the game. But a backup quarterback, full game, I know you have a little bit more time to prep. You've had a chance to do this. I just think that this is too tough of a defense for him to come out and get the win. So I think Notre Dame wins this game, and Notre Dame advances here.
I got it. I think it's going to be 19 Georgia, 13 Notre Dame.
Ugly. Real ugly.
19-13.
Four field goals and a touchdown.
Yeah.
Well, that does it for this week's episode. We have the college football playoff starting tomorrow or today, depending when you're listening to this podcast. We have more coming next week. Then we'll be back again next week for the semifinals after we find out who wins in the Rose Bowl, Sugar Bowl, Peach Bowl, and Fiesta Bowl. I want to make sure everybody has a happy new year. Make sure you enjoy all that. And appreciate everybody listening to us. I appreciate everybody listening to us all this year. It's been great. We love doing this. We love making all this stuff for you guys. And we'll can't wait to be back again next week.
Yep. Yeah. Thank you. Have a happy new year. Hope you had a Merry Christmas, Hanukkah, Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa. Enjoy Boxing Day, Bowl, Pop-Tart Bowl Day. Watch the bowl games. Enjoy it. Cherish this. I mean, you don't get this year round, and you're with your family. Watch football. This is the most bonding sport on the planet. I tell my wife all the time that football is the greatest icebreaker, because just about anybody you start a conversation with has some sort of sentimental tie to football that you can connect with them with. Connect with your family. Talk football. Like, enjoy this. Be safe on New Year's. Which, by the way, hot take: New Year's is the worst holiday on the planet. I don't think
it's the worst, but I think it's overrated.
It's very overrated, and it's the worst.
I think Halloween's the most overrated.
I'm with you on that. Not most overrated, but it's
Halloween's up there.
It's second.
I just don't like Halloween.
Me neither. I'm not a big candy guy.
Yeah, I don't like dressing up.
Yeah, no, me neither. Anyway,
with that being said, we will see everybody again next week for the semifinals for college football playoff.